We've got a bit of an unusual tradition around here. Every year we retire our wedding rings and I make new ones. This started off as a fun idea 11 years ago, but it has turned into something much deeper. A creative ritual that pushes me to make something differently each time. There's an odd lesson in all of that. When you make the same thing every year, it becomes less about the novelty and more about the meaning. And this year, I'm adding a little bit of hidden symbolism that might just change how I make all future rings. And this video is brought to us by Squarespace. Here we go. In the past, I've made these rings out of solid wood, or I've turned them on the metal lathe using some stainless steel. But this year, I want to do something a little bit different. My tool set has expanded, and I want to try to cut it out of 6mm thick titanium. The problem with 6mm thick titanium is you just can't go to your local Home Depot and get this, or even find it on Amazon. McMaster Car does have 4" by 4" 6mm thick titanium. Yes, I'm mixing imperial and metric because I'm evil, but it is $99 for this size. And I don't even know if my machines can cut this. So this is kind of an experiment. So I found this 4" by 4" 6mm thick titanium on eBay for $38. The catch with the eBay titanium is it took like 5 weeks to get here because it came from China. So I am using that excuse for why I'm late on making the rings this year. Actually, I've been late every year except the very first year and last year. So I guess it's also tradition to be late.
When's your anniversary?
October 17th.
What's today's date?
November 11th. It's a little colder than what it should be this time of year. All right, you ready now?
Go.
So today we're going to use the xTool MetalFab to cut the ring shapes out of this titanium. Typically you would make some test cuts so you could try to get the cleanest cut possible. I am not worried about clean cuts because there's so much post-processing that needs to be done, a lot of sanding and polishing. So I don't have a lot of material to work with. So I just want to be able to cut the ring, test the fit, and then hopefully not have to cut too many more after that. So I'm going to go ahead and place this in the machine. In the software here, it's going to take a photo of that so we can see our piece of titanium. So we are going to bring in our ring image and we're going to put it right there. There are presets for titanium in xTool Studio, but not for 6mm. So we are just going to hope for the best here. And then we hit this button over here and hopefully this works. It's real fast. And real hot. Didn't center my two circles, so I did something wrong. Did a little bit of research. Turns out I need to create some leading lines going into the circle so the laser can do its thing. I'm learning, you're learning, we're all learning. Here we go. So let's try this again. Again, we don't have a lot of material to work with. Process, start, here we go. Whew. Okay, that might have worked. Gotta let that cool. I'm not gonna burn myself this time, but we are gonna take this inside the shop and test the fit. It's cold out here, it's cold. Here's what I've learned. Daniel, I'm gonna have you zoom in here so we can see what happened. So this was the first ring that didn't work. When it makes that initial cut, there's that slag on the top there, and you can see it's a bad cut. Also, it shifted the whole piece, and so the rings weren't concentric. So we added a leading line to the inside and a leading line to the outside. So all of that slag is way out of the way, and here we go. So now it is testing to fit. So there is last year's ring, and then this is this year's ring. It's a little tight. We got, can we get that off? Yep, okay. It's a little tight, even though we got some sanding and polishing. I'm going to just increase the size just the tiniest of tiny bits. We're getting there. I was gonna go back into my Illustrator file and make the inside diameter 0.28 millimeters smaller, but looking at it in the real world, I think I can sand that away. There's no reason to go and recut that. So I need to make the second ring. Again, this is the xTool MetalFab. This is one of my favorite machines ever. It just feels like magic to be able to CNC laser cut metal like we're doing. It really opens up a whole world of possibilities for me. If you have a product idea, instead of investing money into a company to make the product for you, you could invest the money into yourself and do these things yourself. You could be a ring maker. I could be a ring maker. The possibilities are endless. All right, so enough of that. Let's get back to cutting Kelly's ring. Is it hot? Nope. All right, we're good. We'll be back to the MetalFab to cut some inlay pieces a little later. It's like November 10th or something. It shouldn't be this cold and snowy in Ohio. Still a little warm, trying not to burn myself again. But you can see on the centerpiece here, the leading line going in, and then you can see on the outside piece, the leading line going in. That was the trick to make all of this work. It is not the cleanest cut because I didn't do any test settings, but there's so much cleanup and sanding and polishing that I gotta do that I'm not really worried about getting the good settings. In fact, I used air instead of argon gas. It is recommended to use argon gas when cutting titanium for nice clean cuts. To me, all that gas is precious, it costs money, so I just use compressed air because, again, I'm not worried about super clean cuts here. It takes like 30 seconds to sand all that off. There we go. I keep all my metal lathe tools in this wooden toolbox. I got a video on making this guy. It has held up very, very well over the years. I don't know if this is going to work, but I have this special tool for ring makers where you can set your ring on there, and then it's got a screw that I can turn and it will expand. And then hold that on there. And then I can chuck this up in the lathe. Just cleaning up that outside layer. That's a good cut right there. Look at those shavings. I think that is looking really good. Now that we got the outside cleaned up, let me get this out of here. I am going to cut the groove, which means I gotta change the tool. I really don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I've done this for a couple of years, but I really don't know what I'm doing. So I'm not gonna go into a lot of detail, and I'm going to let you correct me in the comments because some people like to do that. Typically, you would have a little DRO on here, and you would just go back and forth between two numbers that you set. I busted mine because I backed a tailstock into it, so I have to eyeball it like an animal. That came out pretty good. My tool for cutting out that groove has a tiny, tiny little chip in it, and I don't have another tool to replace that. So the groove isn't perfectly flat along the bottom, but I can make that work. I got some nice rounded 45s on the side. So now I need to see if I can work on the inside a little bit. I was going to put the ring in there, clamp it from the outside, and I'm realizing it would be really tough to get that a perfect, perfectly lined up. And then to stick my finger in there or get some sandpaper in there, even with a dowel, could be a little dangerous. So I am just going to do it the hard way and sand it. I thought, this is my lack of knowledge, I thought this titanium would be really hard to cut on the lathe and really hard to sand. But in actuality, it's not that bad. Next up, I have this little deburring tool. and I can take that and get rid of that harsh inside. Kelly really should have married somebody who knew what they were doing. Daniel is making my day easier. He said, chuck up a dowel on the drill. We'll put some adhesive sandpaper over top of that. That was a good idea. This is our 11th wedding, or was our 11th wedding anniversary. And so the idea is to make a number 1 that goes this way out of wood and a number 1 on the other side separated by 2 pieces of metal. That was Kelly's idea, which is freaking brilliant. So the next thing I want to do is just put a little piece of titanium here and on the opposite side, and then we'll fill the rest with wood so you get the number 11 on there. And for that, I am going to use 1.5 millimeter thick titanium, which is a lot easier to get, and you can get it pretty cheap on Amazon. We have our tiny little pieces set up there on the titanium. So we're gonna hit process, start. Oh, lid is not closed. We gotta close the lid. Gotta close the lid. Now we can hit start, and then the button. The MetalFab is more than just a CNC laser cutter. You can also use it handheld, which is great for breaking down large sheets or just quick cuts when you don't want to get a computer involved. It also welds and makes welding super easy. You don't need years of experience to get amazing looking welds. You can also use it as a rust remover and engrave onto metal. I made them the wrong size because I put in the width and then I had it constrained, so when I put in the height, it changed the width. Guess we're gonna do it again. I've got an entire video dedicated to the MetalFab and all of its capabilities. There's also going to be a link in the description to the latest xTool deals. Like I mentioned before, if you've got an idea for a product, you can invest in yourself with a MetalFab instead of giving that money to another company. It is absolutely amazing what we can do in our own little shops these days. These pieces are really tiny. Right now, they're going to get CA glued in there, and they stick up out of the top just a tiny little bit so we can sand it flush. So I am going to use some CA glue. Ooh, that's looking good. Let's see what we have for veneers, because it doesn't need to be very thick. I know a lot of us suffer from the same disease of having too many veneers. Am I ever gonna use all of this? I don't know. Probably not. This is why people have kids, so they can hand this shit off to somebody else. Ooh, that's nice. We're gonna go ebony. I'm worried that it might turn all black when we get some finish on there. That might work. You can still kind of see the grain on there when you get it wet. I want the grain going this way against, I want the grain to go against the grain, basically. So while I'm doing this, I'm gonna tell you about my friends at Squarespace. If you're anything like me, you're a maker, a woodworker, an artist, a ring maker, a metal worker, you want a place, you want a gallery of your work, you want a website that you own, not by the social media companies, Squarespace is the perfect place to do so. With Squarespace, you can sell both physical and digital, which is what I do. You know what? This wood, it just disintegrates when I cut it. Yeah, this isn't gonna work. I gotta choose a different wood or something thicker. There's a lot of cool features built in with Squarespace. Besides just selling physical and digital items, you can actually sell your time. You can book a calendar time on Squarespace. Maybe that'll work. Maybe not. I used to make websites for a living, and the best way to make a website is to have kind of all of your stuff together, ready to go, all of your text, all of your photos, mapping out the pages that you want. But in reality, most of the time, you don't have all of that stuff ready to go. Since this is tearing apart, I'm gonna try to put some tape on the back there. So you're gonna answer a few questions, and while you're answering those questions, Squarespace is gonna set the whole thing up for you in the background. That way, when you're done answering those questions, all those pages are there, they're navigatable, they're in the navigation tree. You can go and click on each one so you can see what your website is going to look like. That is a pretty darn cool feature. Their templates are absolutely beautiful. I'm using one of their default templates myself for my website. I went to school for graphic design, but I ended up being a web developer. But I still consider myself a designer. And for me, as a designer, to just accept one of their default templates should tell you something. So the tape trick is working great. So I'm going back to the original wood that I originally wanted. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, every year we make new wedding rings. This is our 11th year of making wedding rings. This is also my 11th year of using Squarespace, way before they were a sponsor. I used to be a web developer, and then I decided I don't want to make websites anymore. I want to make cool stuff. Have Squarespace handle the tough stuff for you so you can focus on the creative. Visit squarespace.com, and when you're ready to launch, visit squarespace.com/makesomething to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Daniel, that worked out fantastic.
That was a good idea.
I'm gonna put a little bit of CA glue in here to hold it in place. I don't really have the eyesight for this. In the future, I'm either going to need to find an easier way or get a divorce. So I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. The original plan was to cut a piece of veneer that would just fit right in there, and it would drop below the surface and then fill that gap with epoxy. And I'm really not feeling it. I think it's just gonna make it look black, and then what's the point of using ebony? So I took 3 pieces of ebony veneer, laminated them, and now I got them clamped up here where I am going to cut thin strips that is 3 times the thickness, and it should be just right about at the surface of the ring. A little CA glue in there. Fill that gap. Much better. All right. I'm a lot happier with that. So now I'm using this UV epoxy, fill in any kind of tiny little gaps in there. And this cures really fast with a little UV light. I'd like to thank my top Patreon supporters this month: X2 Crafted Chaos, Jonathan Ransom, Jim from Wiserbees, Ron from Gnomeworks, Jason Ramos, Tom, Chris from Hoffman Woodworks, Jeremy Johnstone, Andy from P10 Workshop, and Letters to Words. Patreon members get access to our private Discord, the raw fusion files to my projects, monthly coupons, and more. There'll be a link down in the description. There they are. If I could go back in time, I would probably pick a wood that is just a little bit lighter, but luckily, we only have to wear these for 11 more months. If you want to learn more about the MetalFab, check out this video here. And if you want to learn more about where this channel is heading, watch this video here. As always, be safe, have fun, stay passionate, and make something.